If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And it's fun. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. You'll be glad you did. Thanks. Now back to the fun stuff. Hello and welcome to Tom's Atypical Tales of Terror and other stuff. A quick reminder before we begin. Please rate us on Apple or your podcast site of choice, and please like or follow us. It all helps to get us higher up the charts and to grow us. And subscribe to our Patreon for great benefits. I also want to remind you of SpidaGames.com. That's SPIEDA Games.com. Use code ATYPICALHORROR, one word, at checkout to receive 20% off your order, or click the link in the show notes to have it automatically applied. Limited time only. There you will find movies, board games, video games, and collectibles at great prices. We are still growing, so if you don't see something you want, feel free to reach out via the customer service links and ask. We will be happy to order it for you, or may already have it in stock but not uploaded. There are sales ongoing for our grand opening. Also, Speedy Games is LGBTQIA friendly, with related programs planned for the future, as well as being gay-owned, so help support a small business that supports marginalized folks. And if you came here from the link on Spida, welcome. Thanks for checking out the store and then coming on over here. Now, a quick recap of what this show is all about for new and returning viewers. On this show, I want to tell original horror stories, but I also want to provide a place to talk about the struggles of living and being creative while dealing with ADHD and autism. In other words, having an atypical brain. Each episode will have a small segment on that up front, but the story will always be the main part. Alrighty, with that stuff out of the way, let's get to it. For this episode's Other Stuff section, I'm going to talk about how my ADHD and autism affected a job I had. One time, I had a not-so-fun conversation with my boss. He had gotten a complaint about me from the director of the facility our contract was with and we worked in, that I had ignored him. I was on break in the break room one day when the director came in and said hi in passing and I didn't respond. Now, there are two important things to note here. First, one of the things ADHD does to me is help me to hyperfocus, so I'm often not aware if someone is talking to me. Second, I have hearing loss and wear hearing aids. This is not because of ADHD or autism. It is actually because I did Civil War reenacting in my 20s and stupidly never wore earplugs while surrounded by rifles and cannons shooting blanks. Even though there are not actual bullets flying, it is still quite loud. So, back to the director of the facility. He emailed my boss to ask, "Who was that rude guy in the break room?" I said hi and he just ignored me. My boss, of course, came to me to ask what had happened. I felt embarrassed. I didn't remember it happening, and I definitely didn't ignore the upper echelons on purpose. My hearing aids help me hear better, but they are not perfect. If I hadn't had hearing loss, would I have heard the man and been able to respond? Or, if I had only hearing loss but no ADHD or autism, then would I have noticed? There's no way to tell. My wife urged me to send an apologetic email, promised it would never happen again, and begged me to work harder on my social skills. So I did something akin to that. Now, however, my wife says that her response was wrong. She told me that actually it is not fair to discriminate against someone who doesn't respond socially the same as everyone else, and who hears differently or less well. Plus, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like that could be ADA discrimination, depending on the circumstances. Now, I understand my strengths and limitations better, and when something like that arises, I try to respond more clearly about what is happening on my end and advocate for myself. Alright, now let's get on to the fun stuff. Welcome back, fright fiends. Ready to see something familiar from the other side? In more ways than one. In this dark tale, our main character is a little different. It wants to infiltrate a family and tear it apart. Shall we see if it succeeds? Note, this story is for adults and contains depictions of violence, cursing, gore, and intimations, but no descriptions of pedophilia. In no way is this story intended to make light of or downplay the real horrors of pedophilia. And please, feel free to reach out if you think they are problematic or not integrated well. The dark thing waited. This would be the final battle. Its vessel wouldn't hold out much longer. And even if it did, its grip was weakening with each encounter. He could hear the skeletal branches of a leafless tree scrape against the window in a howling, mournful wind. Perfect weather for a showdown, it thought, a wry smile coming to the cracked, parched lips of its fading vessel. The bedroom door opened and 2 men in black cassocks, purple stoles, and white collars entered the room. "Well, hello, Patters. Back for another round? I've so enjoyed our little game." It cackled. "This is no game, demon," the old priest said, a scowl on his face. "It is time for you to leave." One year ago. Like many others, this host had made the mistake of using the spirit board. As soon as it heard a human ask, "Is anybody there?" it smiled and answered, "Yes." There were 3 of them at this session. All adolescents, all good targets. One stood out, the smallest one, a bit too skinny and unhealthily pale, silent and worried-looking, as if he had been forced to participate, thoughts broadcasting pain and torment like a lighthouse beacon. Thoughts of inadequacy, of being different, of anxiety. Thoughts of a father for whom he could never be good enough, a perfect target, easy to latch onto and flood with dark thoughts and feelings, until it could break him down and take him for a spin. By the time it was finished, it might well have destroyed the entire family, maybe even caused a few deaths. Smiling, it began its work. At its initial yes, the boys jerked back from the planchette, looked at each other, and took deep breaths. They put their fingers back on it, the target hesitating. Boy 1, "What's your name?" "A-M-Y. "Amy?" the third boy asked. "Your name is Amy?" "Yes." "Did you live in this house?" "Yes." Boy 1, "How old are you?" 10. Boy 1, 10? "Yes." Boy 3, target, "Did you die here?" "Interesting." "Yes." Boy 1, "How?" It smiled. "Now for the fun part. B-A-D, B-A-D, B-A-D." Repeatedly, faster and faster. B-A-D, B-A-D, B-A-D. Boy 2, "A bad death? Were you killed here?" "Yes." Boy 3, target, "By who?" "Perfect." F-A-T-H-E-R. Boy 3 gulped. All were wide-eyed and frightened. Boy 3, target, "How?" "No, no, 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 no." Slam! It punched a fist of energy into the underside of the card table they sat at, rocking it and nearly toppling it, and yes. The target pulled its hands away from the planchette, a look of terror on its face. Now was the chance. The bond was broken. The demon dug its invisible, intangible claws into the boy, like a monkey. It told the boy, "You must leave." He stood. Boy 1, "Wait, we have to close the session and we need you to do it." Boy 3 sank back into the chair and reluctantly placed his hands on the planchette. "Let's get it over with." Boy 2, "How?" Boy 1, "We thank it for talking with us all together and say goodbye." They did so. The demon smiled in delight and nudged the planchette to goodbye. They thought it was over. It was just beginning. The boy set out in the purple gloaming of twilight through a neighborhood of brown lawns and skeletal trees. He kept his head down as a cold wind blew. The demon began whispering to the boy. The boy didn't hear its words, but rather felt them in his brain as his own thoughts. It told him his friends were cruel for forcing him to participate, that they weren't really his friends. The demon smiled as he felt the boy's heart sink into an embarrassed gloom. Isolation had begun. Now for a little fun. It began influencing the boy's perceptions. As the darkness deepened within and without, the boy began to feel as if he were being followed. He glanced back nervously but saw nobody. He sped up a little, heart racing in his chest. Before long, he was jumping every time a leaf skittered across the pavement or a car honked in the distance. By the time the boy covered another block, the streetlights came on. Soon the last light had drained from the sky and all was darkness outside the orange pools of light. Risking another look back, the boy saw red eyes in the darkness. He broke into a frenzied run as he turned the corner, sprinting the last 2 blocks to his house. Every time he looked back, the eyes were closer. "Run as fast as you want, boy. We're bound now, you and me. I'm just having some fun." The boy was sure he would be caught, until he ran up the flagstones to his front door and threw himself inside. The boy collapsed on the floor. His mother ran in from the kitchen, pulled him to her in an embrace, and asked what happened. As he gasped out everything, the boy's father lumbered into the room, cheap beer in hand. A tall man with a prodigious beer gut, he loomed over the small mother and boy huddled on the floor. He chuckled. "So you got scared by your own overactive imagination. Get over it, pussy." He drank the rest of his beer in one long swallow, crushed the can, burped, and wiped his mouth. "Don't talk to him like that," the mother said in a weary, resigned voice that revealed this as an all-too-common occurrence. He turned and stomped off to the kitchen for another drink. The demon was delighted. This was the kind of house that looked beautiful on the outside but was rotting on the inside. It would be easy to accelerate that rot until everything came crashing down. It started slowly, working on the boy, preying on his deepest worries and insecurities. Spent all time not in school in his room, except for mealtimes, where he sat sullen and silent and picked at his food. The boy began to contemplate his father's guns, either using them to rid his school of the newly revealed hypocrites who, he thought, taunted and tormented him, or to end the ever-growing pain he constantly felt. The demon was careful to ensure these remained nothing more than thoughts, not wanting its fun to end too early. He also began bullying his sister. A couple of weeks later, after the father finally struck the mother in a fit of rage over a beer she spilled because the demon caused her to stumble, it was time to commence the next phase before things spiraled out of its control. The demon enjoyed watching the stress build as it piled on small things, everyday annoyances. It especially liked changing the radio station when anyone was listening. Soon, things that would have been ignored before his arrival instead led to small arguments, which led to larger ones, which led to a general sense of unhappiness in the house. It revealed himself to the sister. As she slept one night, it forcefully shook her bed. She woke and saw an immense figure of shadow, red eyes staring down at her from near the ceiling. She screamed. "Boo!" Footsteps pelted across the hardwood floors. The demon returned to invisibility as the door flew open and the light blazed on. It let the mother in but locked the slower father out. After a few minutes more of the child screaming and the father flailing at the door, it was over. The next day, it watched the mother wait nervously in her kitchen, as if expecting someone. When a priest arrived promptly at 4:30 in the afternoon, she got up to let him in. The priest was youngish, 30s or early 40s, genial, balding, and wore wire-rimmed glasses. He simmered in guilt, hidden to all except the demon. The priest saw her face and tried to hide a wince. "Father Williams, thank God," she said, wrapping him in an embrace. "Please come, I have coffee." They went to the kitchen table and sat. "Mrs. Whitmer, Linda, what can I do for you? You sounded so distraught I came as soon as I could." "I think we're being haunted," Linda said, looking away in embarrassment. "Things have been happening, strange things, and Andy, my son, has been acting really strangely." She began to cry. The priest took her hand. "It'll be okay. I'm here to help." "Oh boy, here we go." The demon listened closely in anticipation, eager to see where the conversation went. "Please, tell me everything." He hadn't seen the family at Mass for a long time. So to catch up, he asked about their work, social activities, friends, and other things designed to provide a picture of what their lives were like, before and after things had started. Next, he asked why she thought she was being haunted. Linda paused, seeming not sure how to continue. "Let's see what the cow has to say." "Things have been happening. Small things like missing keys, the remote control going dead all the time. Just constant little things like something is toying with us. Then there's the noises, footsteps in the attic at night when we're all in bed. Doors opening and closing on their own, things like that. And I never liked the basement, but now it just feels wrong. And then there's last night." She told the priest what had happened in her daughter Moira's room the night before. Linda looked down at a cat's dish, still full of food. "The cat, Mittens, went missing a few days ago, but I don't know if that's related." Father Williams thought for a moment, digesting what he had learned. The detail about the cat bothered him more than the rest. "Tell me about your son, about Andy. You said he was acting strangely. How? For how long?" "Yes, Linda. How?" She thought. For a couple weeks, at least. It began one night after he came home from his friend Timmy's." She outlined what Andy had told her about his terrifying journey home, the sense of being followed, the red eyes. "What did he do at Timmy's? Did he tell you?" She seemed confused. No. I didn't ask either. I didn't think it would have anything to do with what happened after. Could it?" Her eyes grew wide with fear and worry. "It's possible. I'll need to talk to him. Describe his behavior since that night." She described how he had become increasingly withdrawn and moody, how he'd become snippier to her and his father, who did not take it well. After a bit she paused. "Look, Father, I know he's 12 and this could all just be the onset of puberty, but he was just such a nice kid so recently, I just can't believe that's all it is. Especially not with the other stuff that's been happening, and both he and his sister seeing red eyes." This last seemed to jog a memory. "And there's something else. I've heard him in his room, several times, talking to someone. And once, I thought I heard a response, but I'm not sure. I couldn't make out what was being said. It just sounded like two voices. I opened the door, and he was alone and denied that anyone else had been there." She paused, seeming almost afraid of what she had to say next, seeming to gather herself. "But that night, The night it attacked Moira. When I was going back to bed after, as I passed his room, I heard him giggling, just like he does after pulling some silly prank on his sister. He knew, Father, he knew, as if he had a friend do something to Moira and they were laughing about it after. She broke into sobs and covered her face with her hands. Ding, ding, ding! We have a winner! Damn right he knew, and he loved it. The priest took her hands and stroked them comfortingly. It's all right, my child. I will help you. Everything will be normal again soon. He left unsaid that normal wouldn't necessarily mean the way things were before. Not with what he could tell about this family and its dynamics. Whatever supernatural problems this family had, it had natural ones too, and he had a duty to help with those as well. He wouldn't leave this woman without imploring her to get out, demon or no. About this time, the front door banged open and people tromped in. Father Williams looked around towards the kitchen entrance. I'd like to speak with Harold and the kids, see what they have to say. That's fine, but Father, Harold will probably scoff. He only let me have you over because he thought it would make me feel better. What's the harm? He said. She frowned. I understand. I'm familiar with his kind. Just then Moira came flouncing into the kitchen, Harold clomping just behind. Footsteps on the stairs indicated Andy was going straight to his room. Father Williams was not surprised. Hi, Mom. Moira said this with the perfect innocent vivacity of a girl still not quite on the cusp of puberty and its changes. She ran over and threw her arms around her mother's shoulders, oblivious to the concern on her face at which she had been so recently telling the priest. That concern dissipated and a soft smile caressed her features as Linda absorbed her daughter's love. Then Moira noticed the priest. Hi, Father. What are you doing here? The nervous smile she gave him broke his heart a little as he remembered sweet smiles before. But he swept all such thoughts aside and smiled back his friendliest smile. The demon noticed all. Well, 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 the boy wasn't lying. Before Father Williams could answer Moira, Harold turned from the fridge, swinging the door close behind him, and spoke as he popped the tab on his first beer of the night. Your mom just wanted some help with a few things, that's all. Hiya, Padre, what's doing? Sorry we ain't made mass in a while, just been so busy. He extended a meaty hand. Father Williams extended his own and shook, not believing a word Harold had said, knowing it had more to do with Harold not wanting to go than any busyness. Harold squeezed far tighter than was necessary, a familiar show of manhood, of dominance. Williams ignored it. Hi, Harold. Don't worry about it. Life gets in the way sometimes. Say, do you mind speaking with me for a minute? Linda told me what happened last night, and what's been happening, and I'd just like your take. Harold sighed dramatically and heaved his bulk into a chair. Sure. Moira had a nightmare, and I couldn't work the knob because I was drunk and groggy from being woken up. That's all. As for the other stuff, this is an old house. It creaks. Andy's growing up, and besides, boys will be boys. I let Linda have you over because she's worried, and I thought you'd help her feel better. Anything else? I like this guy, an asshole after my own heart. The look on his face told the priest that there better not be, and that he should do as expected and make Linda feel better, then leave. No, that's good. He knew not to push someone like Harold. Harold got up without another word and headed for the living room in his recliner. Moira still stood by her mother, looking confused at the men's conversation and what her father had said. Father Williams turned back to her and smiled. Hey, Moira, what do you remember about last night? The girl looked at her mother, not sure if she should speak. Linda nodded, pulling Moira onto her lap. Moira leaned her head against the side of Linda's neck and began. It was so scary. My bed shook and I woke up and there was a huge black thing above me, with red eyes. I started screaming and I don't remember anything else after that. Always so much fun to scare the little ones. Got you good, didn't I? Moira turned and buried her face in her mother's neck, squeezing her tight. Linda squeezed her in return. I do so love to watch the trauma reveal itself. Or traumas, rather. As the hug broke after a minute or so, Father Williams asked Moira to give them some privacy. Go on up into your room until dinner, Linda said, pointing to the doorway. Moira kissed her mom on the cheek, said goodbye to Father Williams, and ran out. The priest hated himself for some of the feelings that came to him as she passed so close on her way. Father Williams turned back to Linda after watching Moira leave. It's time. Can you take me to Andy? Fear returned to Linda's face. Okay, let's go to his room. They stood and Linda led the way towards the stairs. As soon as the words left her mouth, the demon was in the boy's room, moving from one room to the other at the speed of thought. Boy! His head jerked up from the book he had been reading as he lay in bed. Ruth! He looked around, though the demon had never physically revealed itself beyond the shadow form. It could speak out loud if it wanted, but it was easier to do so straight into its target's mind. Yes. The priest is coming. Tell him only of how we met. Tell them of Amy, how you spoke with her, but that was it. Tell them nothing more. It won't stop him from trying to cast me out, but the less he knows, the better. Above all, he must not know my name. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. I won't say anything but what you told me, I promise." At that moment, a knock came through the door. "Honey?" "Come in." They entered. The priest stepped forward. "Hi, Andy. Mind if I ask you some questions?" "Sure." "Remember, tell nothing." The priest questioned him about what happened at Timmy's that night. At first, as instructed by Maruth, Andy denied that anything more than video games and other boyish pursuits had happened. "Please, Andy, I need you to be honest. From what your mother tells me, something must have happened." "What?" "Well, okay. We played with the Ouija board. It was Timmy's idea. I didn't want to." He told them everything that happened with Amy. When the priest asked about his walk home, he said it must have been his imagination after being spooked during the session. He professed no knowledge of what had happened to Moira, claiming he had been asleep. After that, he said he needed to do homework and didn't want to talk anymore, then turned away from them, facing the wall. "Good work." After they left, Linda stopped and turned to the priest. "I'm sorry it ended so abruptly, but when he shuts down like that, there's no forcing him." "That's okay. Let's head back down." "Meet you there." Once back in the kitchen, Father Williams explained, "I think there is something here. Something demonic. It attached to your son through the spirit board and is now oppressing your house. There never was any Amy. If it is not cast out, it will eventually possess your son, and it will do its best to destroy your family. I'd like to come back tomorrow during the daytime. Demons are weaker during the day, and bless the house. Hopefully that will be enough, but there are further steps to take if not." "Dear God, thank you, Father." She got up and led him to the front door. On the way, a question occurred to her. "Why didn't you feel anything tonight? In the movies, priests always talk about feeling evil around a demon." "They can hide themselves and observe. I am sure that is what it's doing at this moment." He looked up to the ceiling, smiling. "Isn't that right, my friend?" "Right as rain, Father. You really know something about demons, don't you? We'll see how much your smarts really help you when the fun begins tomorrow. Not as much as you think, I'll bet." As they stood in the doorway, Father Williams again noticed the faded bruising around one eye Linda was trying to hide with makeup. "Linda, if you need a help of a different, more worldly sort, I can arrange that too. I know of shelters you can go to. The locations are secret, so Harold couldn't follow. Moira and Andy could come too." He spoke softly to ensure Harold didn't overhear. "Thanks, I appreciate the concern, but I just want to get through this, get this thing out, and hopefully things will be better again after that. Not that they were perfect by any means." "Don't think you'll get them out of here that easily, Patter." Father William sighed. He knew this kind of decision was never easy, and under these circumstances it had to be even harder. He knew not to push. "If you change your mind, let me know right away. See you tomorrow." He gave Linda a friendly hug, then turned and walked into the night. Her voice trailed after him, worn and fragile. "Goodbye." The door clicked shut. "Yes, goodbye, dear Father." The presence of evil is nearly overwhelming here. It loomed heavy and dense. "Damn right it is." Father Williams and Linda stood in Andy's room. The father looked around. "You're here, aren't you? Andy says you're just a girl named Amy, but we both know that's not true, don't we? Why don't you tell us who you really are and what you want here?" "Game time." A voice croaked in the still air. "No." Linda yelped and looked around in fear. "Tell us," the priest said in a stern, commanding tone. A guttural, foul voice responded. "My name is immaterial. You know us by our works. We are legion. We are eternal. I know it's cliché, but I love it so." The priest continued. "Why Andy? Was he an easy target?" "That's an easy one. Fun." Father Williams sighed. Nothing more will come of this conversation. Now comes the battle. The priest began, sprinkling holy water in the four corners, along the walls, and across the entry. "You are not welcome here, you foul abomination of Satan. Leave now willingly or be cast out by the power of the Lord." "Never!" it thundered as it slammed its force through the two humans, knocking them to the floor. "Get out or die!" the demon boomed, taking the red-eyed shadow figure form, looming above them. It wanted to make sure they knew what they were in for. "No!" yelled the priest. "Your time is done. You must leave. The Lord commands it." He sprayed holy water at the shadow figure. The demon recoiled in pain and dissipated. "Give them a taste. Let the fun begin." It went to its lair to bide its time. "A taste of what's to come," the priest said, wiping his brow. Only the basement and crawl space were left. The priest had blessed the rest of the house, and nothing more had happened. Linda and Father Williams found themselves looking into complete darkness as they stood in the basement door. There were no windows down there. Linda flipped on the lights and headed down, but stopped after a couple of steps when she realized the priest wasn't following. The demon watched from below. This is its place. Indeed, it was. After a moment, the priest followed Linda down to the bottom. The basement was unfinished, merely a concrete floor and 4 walls. Random bric-a-brac and boxes filled most of the space. As they explored the room and asked questions, the investigators felt mounting dread. Its evil is strongest there, Father Williams looked towards an old bookcase on one wall. The crawl space, Linda frowned. I never liked it in there, even before this stuff started happening. Figures it would pick that place. There's no lights. I'll get some. Linda went upstairs and soon returned with 2 flashlights. Working together, they cleared the space and then pulled the bookcase from the wall. Behind it was a small, square door. Linda opened it. They shined their lights, and what they saw and smelled in the small, dirt-floored chamber almost made them vomit. Animal parts littered the space. Blood had been used to draw a pentagram in the dirt, candles forming a square around it. In the center sat a cat's head, tongue lolled out to one side, filmy eyes staring in mute confusion. At each point of the pentagram sat other animal heads: rat, mouse, bird, squirrel, lizard. Inhuman markings were scrawled in the dirt all over. Yes, the demon thought, savoring their reactions. Look upon our handiwork. Lovely, isn't it? Oh, Mittens, Linda said, shock filling her features. So that's what happened to you. After a moment, a horrifying realization struck her. It couldn't do that. It couldn't go out and collect animals and do those things to them, to poor Mittens. But Andy could. She thought back to those giggles after it scared Moira. Dear Lord in heaven, she gasped, covering her mouth. Andy really is friends with it. Only until it can possess him, Father Williams spat in anger and shock. We have to act fast. Before the priest could move, that croaking voice came from within. Hello, Pater. Come on in. It yanked the priest by the throat into the crawl space. At the same time, it threw Linda back, the flashlight flying from her hand and flickering out. It shut the door. Landing on his face in the pentagram, the small heads crunched and popped beneath Father Williams. The larger cat head pressed into his belly. Here we go. You ready, Pater? I am. Sitting up, the priest erased the last remnants of the pentagram and replaced it with the cross, then drew a circle around it with holy water. Then he took 4 small candles from his satchel, still around his torso, placed them at points of the cross, and lit them. He turned off and set aside the flashlight, leaving the small space lit only in a dim, flickering glow. Lastly, he grasped his crucifix. The demon sneered. I've dealt with those before. They won't beat me. Not in your hands, anyway. You chose the deepest, darkest hole you could hide in, eh? It's a good, scary choice, but don't think I won't drive you out. The demon forced itself into the priest's mind. No energy to waste on sound. In front of the priest, in the light of the candles, the shadow and red eyes appeared. Let's see, shall we? Like my humble abode? The tasty little treat brings me such lovely offerings in the dark watches of the night, and in return he thinks he is getting power. But really you're just fattening him for slaughter, readying him for possession. It was a statement. Guilty as charged, it thought, cackling gleefully. It made sure the priest could sense the smile on its face. He will do so no more. He shall be free of you. Begone, foul apostate of Satan. My faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is immutable, and he will protect me. We'll see, Pater. We'll see. Enough. Demon, in the name of Almighty God, I command thee to come forth and tell me your name. Not with that attitude, I won't. You will never know my name. You will die. Tell me your name, demon. In Jesus' name I command thee, Father William said in a loud, booming voice. Now! The demon laughed. Oh, Pater, you really think you've got the power of God behind you, even after what you've done? The priest recoiled as if struck. Yes, Pater, I know. He told me what you did to him and his sister.
Besides, you reek of guilt and your thoughts betrayed you with the girl. You like 'em young, don't you, when they're innocent and fresh? You're the kind of sick bastard really warms this old demon's heart. How many times, man of God? How many kitties? You still doing it? Just a trip to confessional between each and you're okay, right? After all, you priests do take care of your own.
No! I have sinned, yes, but I have also atoned and earned God's forgiveness. That behavior is behind me, and the Lord has forgiven me. I know it, and I know He is with me now. He is granting me power to defeat you. The demon could sense the desperation and uncertainty in Father William's words.
That right, Potter? You sure? 'Cause God cast me and my pals out a long time ago and hasn't forgiven a one of us, much less asked us back. It takes a whole lot to get back in His high and mighty's good graces after you're out, and I sincerely doubt you've done near enough.
Father William sat up straight as he could. I have been saved by the love and forgiveness of my Savior Jesus Christ Almighty, and through Him I shall vanquish thee. With that he began, first with the Lord's Prayer, then demanding that the demon leave, invoking his God and the Nazarene. He began to spray holy water. When the water hit the demon's shadow form, it sizzled and burned.
Ow, you fucker!
This only served to anger the demon and unleashed its fury. The candles went out. The demon attacked the priest, slashing his face, his arms, his back and chest. When the priest pulled out his Bible and began to read, the demon ignited it. Father Williams cast it aside, and it smoldered in the dirt. In a final, desperate lunge, yelling, "In the name of God, be gone!" the priest slammed his crucifix into the shadowy mass below the red eyes. The demon howled in agony. Though it did hurt, the demon was playing up the pain to make the priest think he was winning, though he very much was not.
Better end this now on the off chance he does get some outside help,
it thought to itself, before turning its thoughts back to the priest.
No, I was wrong. You do have the power of the Lord after all. I can't stand it. I can't stand you. You win, Potter. The boy is yours.
The demon dissipated its shadow form and pulled its essence into the tiniest, most undetectable ball it could muster. The demon had had its fun and knew that it must hide now. It would attach itself as a tiny parasite to the boy when he returned and bide its time until it could enter him. It had hopefully tricked them all into thinking they had won. The demon savored its victory and prepared to weather the coming storm of piety, knowing the priest would enlist help if an exorcism were ever to occur. The crawlspace fell silent as Father Williams crawled out, bloody, disheveled, and, as far as he knew, victorious. He and Linda, who had screamed and pounded on the stuck door the whole time, could feel that the sense of oppression was gone. "Is it over?" Linda asked, hope peeking in around the edges of her words. "Yes," Father Williams answered without hesitation. He sounded confident, but was there doubt inside? The tiny ball of demon listening from the crawlspace thought so. They gathered up the animal remains in a trash bag and closed the crawlspace. Things seemed to be over. Wanting to stay hidden, the demon worked its wiles more quietly, not oppressing the family or haunting them, and only influencing Andy's thoughts towards darkness and despair, wearing him down. He also preyed on Harold's thoughts. As a result, even though things seemed much better, they did not become rainbows and sunshine. Andy was still withdrawn, Moira had nightmares, and Harold still drank heavily. His behavior continued to worsen, and, after he struck Linda again about 2 weeks after the blessing, she decided she'd had enough. The next day, while he was at work, she packed bags for her and the kids, picked them up from school, and went to her parents' house across town. Harold called her that night. In an icy voice, he spoke. "It's fine if you want to leave. Just don't expect any money from me." He hung up without another word. 2 months later, he was found dead, having lost consciousness due to alcohol toxicity and choking on his own vomit. This had been the work of the demon, and a lot of fun it was, too. Not wanting any outbursts of violence to spoil his plans, the demon had visited the father in the dark of night and convinced him that everyone would be better off without him, that booze was all he needed. Linda sold the house and moved to a smaller home she could afford on one salary. The kids took their father's death hard, especially given its circumstances and everything else that had happened. But Andy took it much worse than Moira in revenge. It now told him he was worthless, that his father's death had been his fault. As summer turned to fall, nearly a year after he had first attached to the boy, the demon entered the broken husk with ease. The boy was his puppet. Linda was surprised to see renewed energy in Andy. He left his room more, spoke during mealtimes, and just seemed better. It wouldn't be too much longer before it had permanent control of this vessel. Then it had only to wait for the vessel to reach maturity to wreak real havoc on the world. As a killer, or even better, a politician, if it could continue to keep its profile low enough. For a while, it did, or so it thought. In October, the priest showed up again. "What did you want to see me about, Linda?" Father Williams asked as they again sat over coffee, this time at a much smaller table in a much smaller kitchen. He could see circles under Linda's eyes. She was obviously exhausted and worried. Better than bruises, at least. "It's Andy. He mostly seems fine, like himself. But sometimes he stares at me and it feels like a stranger looking out through his eyes. He curses and spends long hours in the woods by himself. I'm worried he might be hurting small animals again. He's also not doing well in school." "Linda, I know it's easy to jump to conclusions, but this could all be the result of the traumas he suffered. The oppression, the divorce, and then his father's death." "I know, I really do. But sometimes I swear I feel that sense of oppression again. Just fleeting moments, often after he gives me those strange stares. Please just talk to him." "Of course I will." Linda called Andy down, and he came without question. Father Williams saw something in Andy's eyes that wasn't right. It could just be trauma, but he had to be sure. They asked it stupid questions it answered easily, about how it was feeling and how things were going. It was boring. It could have easily convinced them Andy was fine, but it got cocky and let its mask slip, just a little, when it accidentally answered, "Yes, Potter," instead of "Yes, Father," just once. Father Williams stopped, rose, and regarded the boy before him. Then the priest leaned down, planting his balled fists on the table, face set and hard, focusing his eyes into the demons. "Let's cut the bullshit. I know you're in there." A sneer spread across Andy's face. "Hi, Potter." "Get out now or be exorcised. Your choice." "You can try, but if I can't have this vessel, I will destroy it." It cackled in the boy's reedy laugh. Behind the priest, a crucifix on the wall clattered to the floor. "Get out." "I will, but I will be back with the full power of the church behind me. So I urge you again to get out now," the priest said as he turned to leave. The demon tilted its head quizzically. "You're afraid to face me again alone, aren't you, Potter? You know you can't win." He looked towards Linda, standing in mute shock, then back to the priest. "You know why," he said in a conspiratorial voice, grinning. "Shut your mouth, speaker of falsities and sower of discord!" The priest stood to leave, motioning Linda out of the room with him. "Bye," the demon sneered. "Oh, by the way, nice scars." Father William still had faint scratch marks visible on his face. "Here we go. End game." It knew from experience it was rare to win, what with the power of the big man and his boy on their side, but it could at least do as much damage as possible on the way out. It listened to the priest tell Linda that he would immediately be seeking the help of an experienced exorcist, and that, having his own personal experiences to provide proof, he didn't expect any major delays. She hugged him tearfully, and he left. It began 2 weeks later, at the start of a cold November. The priest returned and brought with him an older one. They carried the vessel to his bed and tied him down. "Hi, Patters, ready for some fun?" the demon jeered as they worked. The old priest spoke angrily. "We are not here for fun, demon, but to rid the boy of you. I am Father MacPhail, and I have cast out dozens of your kind. You will not win." "Shit, this one does have holy power. He reeks of it. This isn't going to end well. Time to have some fun for a while and then take Potter Williams with me." Thus began a process that would last almost exactly a month. They would exhort it to leave the boy, reciting Bible passages, prayers, and reading the words of exorcism in the Book of Roman Ritual. The demon would respond by launching invective, chanting in various infernal languages, vomiting, shaking the bed, and throwing things about the room. Even better, it would take on various personas from their past and say terrible things, digging at them. After 3 weeks, the demon was so weak thanks to Father MacPhail's divinely empowered attacks. Father Williams did nothing, not that they knew it. It could no longer fight the priest's exhortations to reveal its name, and thus, at last they learned it. Maruth. MacPhail's exhortations became much more powerful, and 4 days later, the demon knew it was done. It would end things the next session and bring Father Williams down with him. Present. The demon finished its reverie as the priests approached the dehydrated, malnourished thing. "Here we go." "Maruth, your time tormenting this family is done. Begone!" said the old priest, lashing it with sprays of holy water. These sizzled and left burns to join the dozens of red marks on the boy. Maruth recoiled in pain.
That hurts, Father. You ever wonder why your little pal couldn't cast me out, and why I only reacted to your calls, never his? I'm not the only evil in this room. He's a kitty diddler. Loud cackles burst forth from the boy's mouth. Listen not to demons, for they lie, Father McPhail said to Father Williams, who looked stricken. The voice of a strange child, healthy but frightened and in pain, came out of Andy's mouth. Please, Father, stop. It hurts. Then Father Williams' own voice. Just a little longer. Father Williams collapsed to his knees, sobbing. Father McPhail looked as if he'd been struck in the gut. Bullseye. The demon sneered at them in triumph. Linda burst in from where she had been standing on the other side of the door, listening. Did you do it? It said. Did you hurt my children? Her rage-contorted features said the sight of the sobbing priest was all the answer she needed. The demon turned to Linda. Linda, thanks for joining us. You're just in time for the best part. Oh, and by the way, it's true, all right. Just ask your kiddies. And the day you had him over for coffee and to ask for help, didn't you notice how cheerful Moira turned quiet and nervous the instant she noticed the good father? Before any frightening topics came up? I sure did. It scanned all their faces. Why do you think I drew things out so long? As soon as young Andy found out what I was, he made me promise to help him punish the good father here, knowing you would ask him for help. You should hear the horrible things Andy told me about what happened when Father Williams gave them private counseling. But no, I'll be nice and spare you. It smirked. I did trick the boy, of course. Had no intention of leaving when the job was done. But Mr. Good with God over there botched those plans. It turned back to Father Williams with a questioning look on Andy's worn face. How many times, Potter? How many kids over 20 years? 50? 100? You'll never be absolved or forgiven. Hey, wait a sec. You lied about that, didn't you? You said it was behind you, but it's not, is it? I can tell a repeat offender when I see one. You'll never stop, so why not end it now and join me where you belong? Father Williams wailed in unspoken acknowledgement, tears of guilt and confession streaming down his face. Rose lunged forward and punched the mirror over Andy's dresser. No! Father McPhail shouted, but it was too late. Father Williams had already picked up a large, jagged shard of broken mirror and jammed it into his neck. Blood spouted all around him. He fell dead in seconds. Hey, Ruth said, as if he had been thinking about something. Old Potter, I always wondered why God let so many priests do such awful things without punishment. You think maybe I was wrong? Maybe he eventually does punish them? Maybe I was this one's punishment, the answer to the boy's prayers, forcing Potter Williams to commit suicide to ensure no amount of atonement would get him out of hell. What do you think? I like the idea. It cackled weakly. Rage roiled Father McPhail's face. He came forward, shoved the crucifix against the boy's head, where it burned, and shouted, That's the last death you cause! As a maggot drawn from a wound, by the power of Christ Almighty, I cast thee back to the abyss, Maruth! The boy's body arched and convulsed, then flopped onto the bed, still. The room was silent, the demon finally gone. Linda held her son and sobbed. Given the death of Father Williams and the condition of Andy, a police investigation was inevitable. Journals were found in Father Williams's rectory home detailing his crimes in graphic detail, as if he had felt compelled to record and revisit them. This led to yet more lawsuits and scandals for the church. Father McPhail was cleared of all wrongdoing based on Linda's testimony. Andy recovered physically, but the trauma never left, and he fought PTSD all his life. Andy and Moira both suffered from the traumas of abuse as well, but through therapy and counseling achieved some measure of healing. In their adulthood, they worked to prevent what had happened to them. In hell, between visits to join in Father Williams's torture, Maruth kept its ears open for potential victims. The last one had gone well. 2 dead, a family forever scarred, and the church in crisis. All in all, a great job, and it was excited to see if it could top it. One day a voice came through. Is there anybody here who would like to speak with me through this board? Yes. That's it for tonight. Maybe stay away from spirit boards, yeah? Even if you don't believe, just in case. You never know if there might actually be somebody waiting to answer. And even if you want to get revenge on someone, I'm not sure it would be worth the cost to go that route.
Please like and subscribe or follow and rate us. Until next time, stay scared.